Parent Independent Podcast. My guest today is Hommy Biscuits from the internet. My wife.
Yes.
Whom I love very much. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was
it was such a trek to get here.
Yeah, the commute's insane.
It is.
Yeah. So I appreciate you freeing up your schedule, making yourself available so we can have a stimulating conversation.
Yep.
For those that don't know, who are you?
I am Harmony. Is my real name. We'll start there. And I am your wife of what, 13, 14 years? We're going on 14?
14?
Are we at 14? Or are we going into
You're the
14?
one who's in charge of this
I don't
shit.
know.
I don't even know how old I am. You're the one who tells me these things. We'll go with 14.
Okay.
I think it's 14.
Yeah. And mother of what, 4 now? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, 4.
4.
That I know.
Yes.
Yeah. Girl, boy, girl, girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah. Do I don't know.
You do everything.
I do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
a jack of all trades. A
100%.
Jackie of all trades.
Jackie. A Jacqueline.
A Jacqueline of all trades.
I'm really enjoying your recent return to full-blown crunchiness.
Yes.
It's excellent.
I know.
Thank you.
I get to feed you.
Yeah, I dig it. You made, what, 200 little tiny goldfish crackers one
Something
day?
like that.
Just because you felt like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were good.
So you handle the cooking, the cleaning around here. Mm-hmm. We have a sister who comes in and does like deep cleans on
Right.
occasion, but the day-to-day. And then here's a loaded question. What's your role at the companies?
Well, at one point it was everything.
Yeah.
When we first started, I did all of the online store marketing, all of that. And then as the company grew, we hired people and I quit. And then I came back and now I do digital graphic designs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you still assist on the website side as well.
Yes.
Like that's not your day-to-day anymore.
Right.
But you are kind of like our SME, our subject matter expert.
Yes.
On most things Refuge and Caleb House and Grindstone and BI, Bear Independent.
Yeah.
Like people escalate to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they can't fix it themselves, it's like find Harmony.
Yeah, I'm the like problem fixer when it comes to our online presence.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all your fault.
Yeah.
Basically. Why did you quit?
Because I got overwhelmed with home and work because we were insanely busy
Yep.
and it was stressful
Yeah.
and we fought.
Yeah. And then you seduced me. Made me put a baby in you.
Uh-huh. That was
forced me.
after. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. It was good. We won't get into the details.
Good. Let's keep this PG. Okay.
That's not going to happen. This is an R-rated podcast. Oh, I need to pull my jacket down. It says dud. I'm sorry. I'm going for I'm going for the Elijah Schaefer look of t-shirt with jacket over
That's
the
a
top.
good look for you.
Yeah, my shirt says taxes are gay.
Yeah. I'm going to try with the like not watering eyeballs.
Yeah, well, there's 19,000 lumens. Why did I look at it? That was terrible. What's it like being a chick named Harmony?
Very weird.
Okay.
You know, people like don't believe that that's your real name.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's really cool. It's like, yeah, I know. It's been my name my whole life. But I actually used to hate my name when I was younger. I think like in kindergarten, we sang this song that I don't know, it said Harmony like 20 times in it. And like that was like the repeat. And I hated my name and I wanted it to be called Lee. And it never stuck because everybody thought Harmony was such a cool name that they wouldn't call me something generic. So, yeah.
How did we meet?
Online. And we're going to tell our love story.
Yep.
So, yeah, we met on an online dating platform. Plenty of Fish.
Yeah, old school.
Old school, which was like the like hookup site before Tinder came out. And, and so we both like, or I know on my side, he had his profile picture and I saw it and I was like, okay, like his profile was like literally like him in a hard hat with a safety vest with like a cigarette like dangling out of his mouth. And I'm like with his arms, crossed and looking all tough. And I'm like, okay, he's cute, but like there's something about him. And
that one's trouble.
Yeah, I was like, that one's I don't know about him. And so would scroll past and after like 2 months of like seeing him, I was like, okay, like everybody else sucks. We'll try this one.
Thank you.
And so we started talking, like I wrote him and he says he wrote me, but that's not the case. I wrote him and then he responded to my email and we emailed back and forth for like a week and then he wrote me like it had to have been like a 10-page email and I was like, oh wow, this guy can talk, which is something I had prayed for because my previous failed relationship was our biggest issue was communication. And so my biggest prayer was to have somebody that would actually communicate with me and talk with me and conversate. And so when he responded back with all the words, I was like, wow, this one can talk via written form, which is rare these days. Most people suck at written communications. So
I wonder how many people inside of our organizations right now are hearing you describe an email I sent to you. It was 10 pages long. Like, saying bullshit. Because my typical emails are a sentence or two.
Yep.
Yeah, I kept seeing this hot chick named Harmony. It kept coming up on my end. And I literally would think to myself, what kind of hippie name is Harmony? Like, who names their kid Harmony, But you just kept, and you're right, like, everybody else sucked. Like, literally everybody else sucked. And it was like, do you want to come up to Broken Bow for a hookup? It's like, no. No, actually, I do not. You seem like a whore. Yep. And so, but you kept coming up over and over and over on my side. And, yeah, and we talked, I think it was a couple weeks, we exchanged emails. And then I believe it was you were like, hey, here's my phone number. Let's just talk. And I remember so many nights, like, we'd talk on the phone for like 3 or 4 hours every night.
Oh, yeah. We were up until like 1, 2 a.m. And then, I was a contractor at the time. So, like, I had to wake up at, and I had kids, I had young kids that I was getting ready for school and everything. So, like, we'd stay up to like 2. And then I'd have to get up at 6 to start getting them ready and get myself ready. And yeah, it was late nights.
And you were living with your mom at the time in North Texas. I was living with my dad at the time in southeastern Oklahoma. We were both going through major life shifts.
Right.
You had gotten out of your previous relationship. I had gotten out of mine, had been recently diagnosed with colon cancer, blah, blah, blah. only time in my life I was on unemployment. It's like it felt very shameful. Felt like a useless piece of shit. So I started my wind turbine company, and you saw the town my dad lived in. There's nothing there, and accidentally became the largest employer in that town, just because I had a couple of crews of guys going and doing work, and I got lonely, and then I found you, and the Father had his hand all over that.
Oh, 100%.
And so you were like, hey, why don't you come to my mom's house? We're having a barbecue in the backyard. You can meet everybody.
Yeah, it was like literally my whole family was there.
And the neighbors. Kevin, was that his name?
I don't know.
The guy who lived next door?
Yeah.
Yeah, who like did the Mr. Wilson thing with his head over the fence constantly. Remember that storm came through and her trampoline like smashed all the fences?
Crash into the house and break all the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad storm.
But you invited me to come down, and I knocked on the door, and Shine answered the door, and I was like, "Hey, is your mom home?" And
she's like 4 years old.
Yeah, yeah. Is your mom home? She's like, "Yeah," and turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess I'm in the house now. And I had asked you, what should I bring? And you're like, yeah, pick up a 12-pack of Shiner. I was like, okay, this chick's cool. And so I deposited the 12-pack of Shiner on the counter in the kitchen. I remember the layout of that house now, but I'd never been in it at that point. And walked to the back door. I opened the back door, and I remember you were facing away from me. And there were 2 flagpoles there because that house had been the model home. You know, they put flags all over the model homes and all that. There were 2 flagpoles there. And I remember the direction the wind was blowing, where the sun was at, like time stopped. And then you turned and you smiled. And y'all was like, stop. Stop looking.
Yep.
That's your wife. And I was like, okay.
And at the same time, he spoke to me and was like, you can stop looking.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
And I met everybody. And that was like mid-afternoon, like maybe 2 o'clock. And somewhere around midnight, we were sitting on the back patio holding hands and just talking. And then your mom came out and was like, hey, T, you're cool, but it's midnight. You need to go home.
Yep.
I was like, okay, Dawn. I love your mom, but most people do not have good relationships with their in-laws.
Right.
But one of the things that has been an absolute blessing is, by and large, your side of the family are amazing people.
Yes, they are.
And your side of the family just like adopted me.
Yep.
And it was really cool for me because my side of the family is not stellar.
Right.
We've not had good relationships. My mom is cool. My little sisters are cool. I mean, even my older sister's cool, but we're not tight. My older brother's cool, but we're not tight. But like everybody else in the family, it's just been a shit show of generational curses. And so like on day one, it's like, there's your wife and here's your 2 kids that you didn't know you had, but here's 2 kids and your mother-in-law and this uncle and that uncle and grandma and like, it was like, boom, insta family. So I had a lot of maturing to do really quickly because I didn't know shit.
Right.
Like I knew.
Well, we were both very young and dumb still. Like,
yeah, we were still idiots. Mid-20s. And so your mom kicked me out at midnight, and I went out to the truck, and we made out.
And didn't make out.
Okay, it was a very passionate exchange of kisses. How's that? I hopped in the truck, and I was driving away, and I made it about 100 yards away, and I was like, nope, I banged a Yui. Turned around and came back. I was like, we got to suck more face. So we did. And then I went home and didn't sleep. And then
I think you got home and we talked like even more.
Yeah.
And
then a few days later, you came up to Oklahoma. And then a few days after that, we went down to Central Texas to get your stuff from that previous relationship. And we were in
sell my house and
yeah. And we were in a hotel room, and I was like, I believe it was 9 days after I'd met you. I said, hey, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm in love with you. And I was so freaking scared and nervous. Because you know me, I'm a light switch, on or off, in or out, up or down, good or bad, left or right. There's no in between, you know? And so I was like, well, let's rip this Band-Aid off. It's either going to be good or bad. And so I was like, hey, I'm in love with you. And you're like, I believe your exact words were, oh, thank God, I'm in love with you too. I was like, cool, let's do this thing.
Yep.
And we've been doing this thing ever since.
We have.
We've done a lot of shit in 14 years.
Is that the hotel that you almost died in?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. I thought it was that trip.
Yeah, that's the one. Different conversation for a different time. Let's just say I shouldn't smoke weed.
No.
I know this about me. Talk about paranoia.
People are going to want to know.
I know that my airway actually closes. You just think that I'm so paranoid that it feels like I can't breathe.
I'm pretty sure that was the case,
No.
though.
I don't care.
I mean, the paramedics said that was the case.
You can't trust those people. Really, you can't. That's why I started Refuge. They're untrustworthy. I'm just kidding. Some of them are good. Some of them are not good. We'll fast forward over that part. So what, like 30 days after we met, I moved into your mom's house with you.
Yeah.
She gave us the upstairs, and we lived there for about a year. Then we moved into that, our little house, about a mile from there, still in North Texas. And
well, you left out, like, I was a contractor.
I was getting there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Continue.
One of my favorite memories is because your mom lived in this really nice HOA community.
Yeah.
And you had a Volvo station wagon at the time. And the turbo went out on it. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? And you're like, I'm going to get a turbo and replace the turbo. I'm like, you're going to get a turbo? And okay, whatever. And so we out in the street in this HOA, very nice community. We're out there with wrenches and sockets and the hood up. And
covered in grease.
Yeah, crawling around inside of this damn Volvo, swapping the turbo out. And it's one of the things I've always liked and respected about you is, like, you're not afraid to roll your sleeves up and get shit done. And I think that's part of why we're a good match, is because there's always a lot of shit to get done. And it's not just me that does things. Like, I do a lot of things, but you do a lot of things too. And you do your own things. That's why when you were like, I'm a contractor, I was like, okay, sure. And you were like, well, then fucking come to the job site with me. I was like, okay. You're like, show and tell, come and see. And so I did. And like, yeah, you know your shit. You have a really good eye for not just for design, but implementation as well. And so we were, doing like kitchen and bath remodels predominantly, stuff like that. I stopped doing wind turbine stuff so I could come and help you do that.
Right.
Kind of like with our powers combined, you know, we can be Captain Remodel. So.
Well, it's one of those, like, I can do it by myself, but, like, when I'm dating a big, strong dude, that has its perks in the heavy lifting contractor world.
And he's got a 1-ton truck, and he can tow trailers. Yeah. Yeah. 50-pound sacks of grout add up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tile's heavier than people think it is.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bags of mortar, like, super heavy.
So we did a bunch of that. Remodeled a bunch of houses. I learned a bunch of stuff. Like, I learned trim carpentry from you.
You sure did.
I sure did. And then, so we moved into our little house, in North Texas, and you got sick.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, being a contractor, I had a very poor diet. I'm one of those that, like, when I get focused on a project, I tend to hyper focus and forget everything else, including eating.
Yep.
And so my diet basically consisted of crackers and Dr. Pepper.
True.
And so it's something that I had as a young child, but basically, it's called postural orthostatic tachycardia, POTS syndrome, and it's crazy heartbeats and low blood pressure. So what happened is I was fine, and then one day I'm retiling a shower, and I go to stand up from like picking up a tile off the floor, and upon standing up, completely passed out, blacked out, and fell and smashed my head. So um, it was scary. And then driving, that happened, and I was like, okay, like that was weird. And then a few days later, I was driving, picking up some paint from the paint store, and basically my entire body ended up locking up. And I remained conscious for a moment, long enough to like get myself pulled over to the side of the road while like, and like literally calling 911 with my nose. Yeah. And
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
yep. And luckily enough, our pastor at the time, his wife,
Dave and Candy,
was driving by and recognized my car and stopped. And
I was at the job site, and I got 3 phone calls in a row from Pastor Dave.
Yeah.
And the first one, I was up on a ladder. I was doing something. I was like, I'll call him back when I get off the ladder. Second one rings through immediately, and I'm like, okay, something's up. And I was like, okay, let me get off this ladder. And as I was getting to the bottom of the ladder, he called a third time, and I'm like, what's up? And he's like, Candy's with Harmony. She's okay, but she's in a ditch. Need to get her to a hospital. I'm like, the fuck is going on here? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So I got to the hospital. At that point, I kind of had a inkling. I had been Googling, and so I had a feeling that I knew kind of what was going on. Plus, like I said, I had previous history from being younger, running track, and then basically passing out at the finish line, falling downstairs, things like that. So I kind of knew what was going on. And so we get to the hospital, and they're like, oh, nothing's wrong, you suffer anxiety. And I'm like, I do not. I am like the chillest person until I'm not. Like, I do have my moments, but like usually that's in anger, not necessarily anxiety. So I was like, it's not, I'm not anxious. And I told the nurse, I was like, look, watch whenever I stand up. And because I'm laying on the hospital bed. And so they stand there, and I stand up, and my heart rate shoots up. Like I'm in like 180 from like 60. And they're like, their eyes just like bug out, and they're like, what?
Yep.
And then I sit back down, and it immediately drops again, back down to 60. And they're like, okay, do that again. And stood back up, jumped right back up. And so they ended up calling in the cardiologist, and everything and made an appointment with them. But like the long and short was I went to see the specialist, and the specialist is like, we can put you on beta blockers. I'm like, okay, well, what does that do? And they're like, it slows down your heart rate. Like, okay, but what happens like when my heart rate's already slow? And they're like, well, it could slow it down enough that it kills you. Like, I don't think I want that. It's like, that does not sound good to me. And so in doing more, Google research and joining a couple of different support groups, basically came up with my own game plan on what I needed to do, and went to see a pulmonologist because a lot of heart rate things can deal with breathing.
Yep.
And so did my breathing, worked on breathing exercises, and started a round of supplements and things like that. And through, doing that for like a year, finally like got it under control.
Yep.
But yeah, it was hella scary there. Like I was scared to like literally do anything.
That was a rough year.
Yeah. Like I stayed in the bed for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And just like literally scared to move.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Yep.
That was it was a challenging time for me because you're my wife and I love you, and we didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
And you're so badass that to see you bedridden scared me. And we still had 2 little kids. We still had a business to operate.
I was gonna say, and I was still a contract. Like our books were full.
Yeah, and then they weren't.
Yeah.
I remember one time it was a Friday, and the kids were like, "Dad, it's Friday. Can we order pizza?" And I'm like, "No." We had 16 cents in the bank account. 16 cents. And they're like, "Dad, can we go see a movie?" And it was like, "No, we'll watch something on TV and we'll pop some popcorn," right? And all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was praying because we'd kind of started our faith journey, which I guess we'll come to next, during this same time. Imagine that. You like start your faith journey and then like, oh, here's your bedridden wife for months. And, and we had let all of our guys go on the contracting side because it was fall and we didn't want those expenditures in winter and blah, blah, blah. And so I spent all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just praying. And I'm, me in patience. I'm not very patient. And I'm like, listen here, God, I know you're doing something, but whatever you're doing, I need you to go ahead and do it. Like, just do it. And I prayed all weekend. And then Monday morning, the last bit of work that we had to do was I had bid $200 to go swap a meter can on a house. It was right up the road. Service was off, real simple. Pull the old meter can, put a new meter can on, rehook up the service entry. Because I know electrical stuff, right? Like, that's what I did, power construction, before I came over to work with you. And so, whatever, And while I was doing that meter can, the phone started ringing. And it was somebody that we had bid, I think it was remember that one fence we did in that neighborhood? It was like,
the 500 feet of fence.
Yeah. And they were like, "Hey, you gave us a quote like a year ago. We're ready." I'm like, "Okay," because it was like a $12,000 job. It's like, "We'll be there. Thank you, Father." I get off the phone with them, and I'm like, I got to tighten the last lug down inside of this meter can. Phone rings again. And the phone just kept ringing. It rang like all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and by lunch on Wednesday, I turned the phone off because we had another 6 months worth of work booked up. And so that was real provision and blessing right there. And during that time, this little church that we had joined, they really took care of us. They did a really good job. We theologically disagree on a lot, probably at this point, based upon the understanding that we have now. But they understood love your neighbor as yourself. And meals and rides and making sure somebody was there to be with the kids after school. And I remember John Hancock, who was the pastor's father. Awesome guy. He was on Dallas SWAT team for like 20 years. Great guy. Him and his wife. He called me over to his house because he wanted a quote to add some can lights in the kitchen and the dining room. I was like, okay, we need the revenue. Sounds good. I'll be there, John. And it was right before Thanksgiving. So I come in, and he's like, we're thinking about a light here and a light there and a light there. And he's like, but, whatever you think. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I'll write this up. I'll get a proposal to you if you want to move forward, 50% down. He's like, okay. And we're walking out the front door, and I shake his hand. I'm like, thanks, John. And I turn to walk away, and he's like, hey, T. And I turn around, and I was like, what's up? And he had a check in his pocket, and he pulled it out. And I used to wear those Carhartt work shirts with the pocket shirt, and he just stuck it in my shirt pocket. And I said, I haven't even given you a proposal yet, John. He goes, I don't need any effing can lights. He's like, I just needed to get you over here so I could talk to you. I'm like, what's up? And it was a check for $1,500. And he said, take this, pay some bills, buy what you need so you and your family can have a good Thanksgiving. I melted. Just started crying. It's like, John, I can't. And he goes, you can and you will. Go take care of your family. I was like, thank you. I will pay you back. And he goes, no, you won't. Don't pay me back. And, okay. So I get in the truck, weep like a baby on the ride back home. Thank you, Father. And then the following week, there was a guy from church. A check shows up in the mail. It was from Morgan Stanley. $5,000. No name on it. But I recognized the signature at the bottom. He was part of the men's group at church. And so I didn't cash it immediately. I went to him at church. I said, I need to talk to you. And he's like, about what? And I was like, check showed up in the mail. And he goes, okay, so? I was like, listen, MF, I know you sent it. And he goes, I didn't send a check. I was like, bullshit, this is your signature. And he smiled and goes, okay, you got me. I said, I can't take this. And he said, listen, T, I've done really well this year. You're going to take that. You're going to pay some bills. You're going to feed your family until you get back on your feet again. I was like, I can't. And he said, you're going to. Take it. I was like, okay. And then the following day, Pastor David called me and he says, can you go to lunch? And I'm like, in the midst of all of this, I'm like, well, who did I piss off at church? Now the pastor needs to have lunch with me? Like, you got to be shitting me, dude. And so I'm like, yeah, we'll go to lunch. So we go to lunch. There's a little restaurant on the square in town there. And I'm sitting there, and we have lunch. And I said, hey, I'll pick up the tab. And he goes, no, you won't. And I said, yeah, I will. And he said, no, you won't. And he slides me a check for $1,000. I said, David, I can't take this. And he said, you're going to take it. You're going to use it to pay your bills, feed your family, until you get back on your feet. And I just started crying. I was like, I cannot keep doing this.
Yeah, it was a huge lesson in humility.
And he said, son, you need to learn to be a gracious receiver. And I said, I don't even know what that means. And he taught me a concept. Well, first of all, it's better to give than receive, right? And he said, look, I have to give this to you. The Father is requiring that I do this. And so if you don't let me do this, you're causing me to be disobedient. And I don't want to be disobedient. So I need you to receive this blessing so that I can be obedient to the Father. And he said, and I said, well, I'll pay you back. He said, no, you won't. He said, you don't pay blessings back. This is a blessing, not a loan. And he said, one day you're going to be in a position where you can help someone. And when that time comes, you help them.
Yep.
And the left hand doesn't need to know what the right hand is doing or has done. But I think I can confidently say we've repaid all those good works that people did for us 100-fold since then. But it was very humbling. That whole situation was very humbling for me.
Yep.
Between you being sick and then the unsolicited support of these people who genuinely loved us.
Yep.
And genuinely loved each other. And theologically, total milk.
Right.
But there's still something to that milk because they were operating the best they knew how with the understanding that they had. And I don't think anyone can knock that.
No.
They were really being the hands and feet. So.
Well, and they weren't just Sunday box checkers. They lived the faith.
Yeah. Well, it was impossible to box check at our church because if nobody showed up, there was no church.
It's very true.
It was in a cafetorium.
Yeah.
Half cafeteria, half auditorium. Remember, Mike Dixon would show up at our house at like 6 a.m.
Yep, with the trailer to load the drums.
Yeah. And we would, it's 18 trips. It was 18 trips from the garage where my drums were at to the truck. 18 trips from the truck to the stage. 18 trips from the stage to the truck. 18 trips from the truck back to the garage every Sunday.
Yep.
Plus pipe and drape and coffee station and the check-in station and the soundboard and putting all the chairs out. And we forged a lot of really good relationships with that because, you know, and the spread in a group typically is, you know, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. It wasn't possible in that church.
No, we needed everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was all hands on deck.
And we just bought a church.
Praise God.
It's going to have to be that way too. Right? And anyway, so yeah, we started our faith journey together. What was that like?
Well, it was very strange. Like, me and my grandmother were gone to Mississippi. My great aunt had just passed away. And so I'm gone. You're home with the kids, I think. And
no, the kids were on visitation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And because it was summer. And so we're doing our like daily call, and we had some friends that lived down the road. They weren't friends at the time. You knew them, but you were gonna go help them move.
Yep.
And
Mike and Brooke Roberts.
And so we're talking that night, and you're telling me about how you helped them move, and then you're like, yeah, and they invited me to church. I was like, okay. And then, like, I think I'm going to go. And at that point, I'm like, what? Who are you? Okay. And are you sure? And you're like, yeah, I think, like, I'll just check it out. And I'm like, okay. And so the next day, I think you went, and we did our daily phone call the next day, and or later that afternoon. And I'm like, okay, well, how was it? And you were like, well,
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. You're like, okay, so I was like, I got to go back. And you got to come with me.
Yeah.
And you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like, I don't do church. Like, I have faith. I believe in God. But, like, I don't do church.
Yep.
And you're like, just come. Like, just come. So we did. And he's a front row seater. which made me hella uncomfortable because I'm like, I want to be in the back, just like nobody sees me. But no, we're right up front.
Those became our seats, right up front.
And yeah, I think I cried like
Yep.
most of the service.
Yep. Then we ran away. We like exited the AO.
Yep.
ASAP.
Yep.
We went home.
Yep.
Actually, I remember sitting in the truck in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And being like, I was like, what did you think about that? And you were like, I hated it. And I was like, yeah, me too. And you were like, we have to go back.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we have to go back. And so then we went the third time. And so Mike was the associate pastor. David had Mike do the closing prayer so that when we tried to run away, he could corner us in the hallway. Do you remember that? Wisdom.
Yes.
He cut off our exit.
It's like, I know their gamut now.
Yeah. Do you remember what he said to me?
No.
He said, I understand you're a drummer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Would you prayerfully consider joining the worship team? And in my mind, I'm screaming, not just no, but hell no.
Right.
No freaking way, dude. So we went home, and you were in the kitchen cooking, and I was in the living room bitching and talking back and forth. You know, should I do it? Should I not do it? And I remember you saying either do it or don't, but shut up about it. And so
that's my tagline.
Yeah. So I sent David an email with some links to me playing drums in metal bands, thinking, well, that'll fix it. About 15 minutes later, I got CC'd on an email back from Floyd, who was the worship leader, who then Floyd's amazing. Floyd and Tamara and his whole family, they ended up in Uganda as full-time missionaries for 4 years, and they're now in Southeast Asia restoring women who have been trafficked. Incredible family. Floyd wrote back and said, oh, hell yeah, this guy's awesome. Get him. And I was like, shit.
Yep.
So I started playing drums in the worship band. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, I don't think that there is another church worship band that rocked the house like we did.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like, it was awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it moved people to tears every Sunday.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it was just so powerful.
Yep.
And it was so powerful because of the drums.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Drumming is something, being super vulnerable. I haven't shared my drumming since that church fell apart.
Yeah.
And I'm really apprehensive to do so. Because so when you're playing metal, right? I remember looking over the top of my drums and seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of people going absolutely nuts to the music. And like, I am a drummer, and I have been for 25 years, but people also don't realize, because I don't share it, I have one of these too. And I know how to use it. And like, a lot of the songs that we wrote, in part or in whole, I wrote on guitar as well. Not all of them, especially the bands I was in, they're such talented musicians, incredibly talented. I mean, my bassist, Joe, who watches this stuff, what's up, Joe? The best bassist I've ever met, ever. Not just from a technical aspect, but he can feel it, right? Like, he makes music.
Right.
He doesn't make noise with the bass. He writes music. And he also plays guitar, and he writes music on guitar. And so I was surrounded by these incredible musicians, but I was also contributing to incredible musicianship. And I would look over the top of my cymbals and see people just going absolutely crazy. And there's some pride and ego in that. It's like, we wrote this music, we're performing this music, and people are responding to it. Then you go to the worship side, where it's a completely different thing, where most of the time, I didn't even have my eyes open. Mm-hmm. I was like in my own little world, eyes closed, worshiping as I'm playing.
Right.
And I can feel the Spirit flowing through me as a conduit. And then I would, last song, last bar of the last song, I would open my eyes and I would just be crying the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. In the Spirit. I look over my drums and there's a room full of people that are just worshiping.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. Total other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
No pride, no ego, just in submission to the Spirit. And I haven't shared my drums since then with anyone.
Right.
Because it hurt to lose that when that church fell apart.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to wrap my head around and my heart around the idea of putting drums in a church again and playing worship with people that I love.
Yeah.
But I'm like, there's a wound there.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever vocalized that. Yeah. But there's a wound there. And I'm working on healing that so that I can do that again. Mm-hmm. Because
it'll be awesome when we do.
Yeah. And I'm pretty good at drums. Mm-hmm. I don't play worship songs like they're written. Remember Kelsey when she became worship leader?
She was like, "What the hell?"
She would get so pissed off. Mm-hmm. She'd be singing up on stage, la 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 la, and she would turn and look at me at the drums.
Uh-huh.
And then she'd turn back around and blah 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 la 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 la, and then what?
Yeah. Because you didn't play like traditional. I mean, like, we were playing traditional Christian music, but you did not play it the way that those musicians played it.
No, because it's boring as shit.
Yeah. Which is why we rocked the house.
So, the drummer is the bus driver.
Yeah.
I set the tempo. Mm-hmm. I set the pace. And drums are an instrument too. And I think a lot of people miss that, right? Like, the dynamics, how you play, greatly affects the feel of the song, right? What you accentuate, what you choose not to accentuate. And a lot of worship music, Christian music, frankly, the drums are horrendous.
Yeah.
They're an afterthought. Mm-hmm. We just need something to carry a tempo.
Right.
And it's insulting as a musician to be like, this is what we're doing, guys? Right. Okay, we're doing 4/4 again. Oh, no, this one's 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And at the tempos, it would put old people to sleep, you know? And so that was always my thing. I always play faster live anyway. When I would watch videos of me playing metal live, when we recorded it, it was fast. But when it was live, I would watch videos back and go, I literally don't know how I'm doing that. But it's adrenaline is what it is. But even playing worship live, it's like, we're going to kick this tempo up at least 20% because otherwise I'm going to fall asleep. It's too slow, to the point where once Floyd took his family to Uganda and they were doing full-time ministry in Uganda, Kelsey came in and she was a good worship leader, but she was very by the book. Mm-hmm. We have to play it the way it was recorded. And what a bunch of ragamuffins we had for a band, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they were all hard rock or heavy metal. Mm-hmm. Like, all of us were into hard rock and heavy metal, other than Kelsey, who was, like, you know, raised in the Baptist church and the whole nine. And so, you know, you had Chris hanging on bass, right? And wearing Nirvana shirts and stuff up there. And Kurt on guitar, you know, with his AC/DC or Led Zeppelin shirts on. Cody on the keys with wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. Me behind the drums, right? Mm-hmm. And so we would go hard, and we would go heavy, and we would go faster than it was recorded. And it did rock. It was like a rock concert that was worship music, and it was it felt great.
Yeah.
And I think that, we're told in the Word to worship in spirit and in truth, right? And that's in reference to who Mashiach is.
Yeah.
But also, like, who am I truly? Mm-hmm. I don't listen to easy listening.
Right.
I'm not your standard tempo person. Mm-hmm. I'm going to turn it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that church imploded.
Yeah. And it sucked.
We hadn't been going to church.
We hadn't.
Remember? No. And do you remember that Sunday morning? I was like, we're going today. Mm-hmm. And we went.
Yep.
And that was the last Sunday that church had.
Yep.
Do you remember what happened?
Like the church dividing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sucked. It was like, it was incredibly hard to witness. And
India.
It was incredibly hard to witness the division that happened within that congregation.
Yep.
But I think it's something that, like, we needed to witness.
Yep.
There was a purpose for us being there. But it very much so tainted our new Christianness for a time.
Yep.
Like, it was very hard to deal with. And we lost, good friends that we had.
Yep.
And, yeah, it sucked.
So I started reading the Bible.
Yeah.
For myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you were pissed. Like, he doesn't deal with, like, emotion very well. He's better at it now, but 14 years ago, it was not the same man.
100%. Yeah, I was furious. Mm-hmm. I was really pissed. What am I like when I'm pissed? We'll just sidebar there for a minute.
You're a bear. Yeah, you don't want to be in his vicinity. I mean, we're both like that. Like, we are both ragers when we're angry.
Yep.
And we go from like, it's not too bad to like, stay the fuck out of my way.
If I can even say words.
Yeah.
It's usually not even words with me. I'm so pissed off I can't even talk.
Yeah.
I chuckle these days when people will come to me and say, I know you're mad at me, but...
Right.
I'm like, you don't even know what mad looks like.
Right.
You think this is what I look like when I'm pissed off? Like, I'm slightly perturbed. And I'm proud to say now, I don't think anybody that we currently do life with really knows what I look like when I'm furious.
Right.
Because it's a whole different animal. Mm-hmm. And I've worked really hard in the last 14 years to not go there.
Yep. Because
I know what I look like when I go there.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we were at that Oktoberfest at one time and all those college kids were there swearing right next to the kids?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I swear too, but around the kids, and they were little, and...
But we are the ones that chose to go to Oktoberfest.
We did. I wasn't expecting that. It was a different Oktoberfest than what I was used to. Uh-huh. But I remember turning and looking, and you were like, please don't. Yeah. Please don't. And I remember describing, there were 4 of them, in what order and how I was going to dismantle them if they didn't shut the fuck up and get out of my AO. Yeah. And I remember you tugging on my arm, like, please don't. Yeah. You said, they deserve it, right, but not in front of the kids. Uh-huh. I was like, okay, honey. But it's like, I'm going to kill you first. Then I'm going to use you to beat him to death. Mm-hmm. You're going to be in shock and awe mode, so I'm going to break your jaw with a left hook. And then that just leaves you. And it's just you and me one-on-one. And I'm going to wreck your shit, and I'm going to take my time doing it. And they were like... Anyway, So the church fell apart. Back to holy things. And I started reading my Bible for myself. And then a bunch of our church friends, the ones that we still had, thought I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing what it says to do in Leviticus. And they're like, you don't have to do that. I was like, actually, I disagree. What was that period of time like for you?
Questionable. Yeah, it was questionable. Like I wasn't 100% in agreement. But throughout your walk, I have always tried to be supportive in wherever you were going, in that walk, whatever path you chose. And so, we were still reeling with the hurt of the church falling apart. And then you started reading your Bible and saying weird things. And I was just like, okay, I don't know where we're going now. And so it was something that for a time I just let you do. I was like, okay, and my prayer was like, yeah, just speak to him. At the time, God, just speak to him and let him know, where he's supposed to be and turn him into the man that you want him to be. And so I just kind of let you do your own thing. And, we started keeping Sabbath. And I was like, okay, this isn't that weird. Because when I was growing up, I was raised by my great granny and great granddaddy and grandma for a time of my life. And he always kept Sunday as the Lord's day. But he would not, we didn't do anything.
Yep.
I mean, we still cooked, but that was like literally the only thing that we did. He wouldn't take me fishing, and I used to get so pissed that we wouldn't go fishing. But even the fish needed a day of rest, and
which is Torah.
And so when you brought up keeping Sabbath, I was like, okay, like I remember this. Like we did it on Sunday, but like if you're saying it's supposed to be Saturday, okay, like that's not, but like it wasn't a super foreign concept to me. And I was like, okay, I can get down with this. And like, yeah, it's a little harder on Saturday because the world operate, like everything is done on Saturdays.
Yep.
And so that took a little bit of getting used to. But and then, came the dietary laws, and that I had a little bit harder of a time with, just because I was raised in the South. Like all we eat is pork.
And if not pork, then catfish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And so that took a little bit longer for me to adjust to. And there was times that like I kept it at home, but like me and grandma would go out shopping, thrifting, and our like ritual was we'd stop at McDonald's and get a sausage biscuit before we hit the flea markets. And so, or we'd stop at lunch and get a bacon cheeseburger. And so for a time I still did that. And, I'd come home, not eat any pork at the house, but then we'd go out but then the conviction hit me. And I'm like, I'm still being disobedient to my husband and to Yah when I do this outside. And so, like, am I choosing food over my husband and God?
Yep.
And the answer was yeah. And so I was like, okay, that's wrong. I should not do that. I should be better. So I quit, and it was, it wasn't terribly hard, and it was just like find new things.
Do you remember that time you asked me to make pulled pork?
Yeah. So it was shortly after we had talked about keeping the dietary laws, but in that time that, like, I was still eating some pork outside of the home, and so before we had come to Torah, he used to make a pork shoulder, pulled pork, and it was bomb. Like, your barbecue sauce was just delicious. And so,
you know what's incredible? Let me just pause you for a moment. Mm-hmm. I do not remember how I used to make that now.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, the Father just took it from my brain. I don't remember at all. But I used to make it so often I didn't even need a recipe.
Yeah, you just threw stuff in a pot. So
I do not remember now. But continue.
But and so I was like, it'd be great if we just, like
one last time,
last hoorah, and if you could make this, that'd be awesome. And so he complied. I had my Eve moment, okay?
But I did it.
You did it.
And I shouldn't have done it.
You shouldn't have done it. And we all paid the price. So we ate it, and we, indulged in our sin and enjoyed it in its moment. And then afterwards, all of us got horrible, like, both ends for like 24, 48 hours. Like, we were all sick as a dog. And, like, it's one thing when one person has the stomach flu, food poisoning, whatever. It's another when the whole family has it. And our entire family got it.
Yep.
But I was cognizant enough of myself and my choices that I was like, okay, God, my bad. Yeah. I'm sorry. I won't ever do that again.
Yeah. Message received.
Yep.
We were keeping meat rabbits in the backyard as well at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Those things were huge.
Mm-hmm. We had Flemish giants, New Zealand giants. So, like, you're talking a rabbit, laid out that's that big.
They were 30 inches long.
Yeah, they were huge.
Yep. And so, you know what? We'll talk about suburban homesteading next. Let's take a quick break. You got to clap because it synchronizes the audio across all the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's not my job to know. That's what I have him for.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about backyard homesteading in North Texas.
Oh, yeah. The meat rabbits.
The meat rabbits. Yeah. They were gigantic.
And how Yah told me to kill them.
Yeah. Why don't you tell that story?
So, we had a bunch of meat rabbits. I think, we had 3 does and 1 buck?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think so. And we had a coop or a hutch thing, a large hutch that we had built beside the house.
In our backyard in suburban North Texas.
Yes. Yeah, we did a lot of things in our backyard in suburban Texas. It wasn't even suburban. We were in downtown.
Yeah. We were a couple blocks off the square.
Yeah. So, pretty central. And, but yeah, we did a lot of things that we weren't supposed to do. But, one of those was raise meat rabbits. So we have this hutch, and we had like lined the bottom with chicken wire.
2 layers.
2 layers of chicken wire, to keep them from, digging out, because rabbits do like to burrow. And we had our big garden, like our whole backyard was garden space. Like
Yep.
we had all these raised beds, and had a fairly prolific garden because we gardened with rabbit poo, which is a great composter. And so I come home one day, and this was after we were doing our best to keep Torah, and the rabbits had chewed through their chicken wire 2 layers and had burrowed underneath their hutch and out into the backyard and had eaten literally everything that I was growing. Like, my garden was decimated.
Destroyed.
And I forget where you were.
I was in Austin doing a job with Vine and Branch's Fine Woodworks.
Yes.
Doing an install.
Yeah, because so like all of this stuff was a very tight timeline between like our church imploding, me getting sick,
Torah, job change,
starting new jobs. Yeah, we didn't even get into that whole thing, but we're talking like a couple of months here, and like it was bam, 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 and so I get home, or I think I was home because we had to eat, or not eaten, Aspen.
Yep.
And and I'm pregnant, so yeah, life is chaos. And so I think I'm at home on maternity leave, and I go outside, my garden's destroyed, and like I said, when I get angry, I see red, and there's nothing that will stop me. And so I go outside and I see my garden destroyed. I am fuming. And I don't know if I called you before or if I called you.
No, you called me after.
After. So, yeah, so I'm pissed. I go inside. I grab the gun.
Because it wasn't just the 4 rabbits. We also had a litter of rabbits.
Yeah, I had little baby rabbits, too.
Yep.
Like, I think we had 2 litters. So, like, we're talking, like, 20 kits. And plus, these giant rabbits all hopping around everywhere. So, I go inside. I get the 22 and come back out and literally shoot all of them. Like, I am just target practicing around our backyard, trying not to shoot into the neighbors' yards. Because you're not supposed to be shooting in downtown. And so I finally get them all dead and call him, and I'm like, he's like, "How's your day going, babe?" I'm like, "I killed them all."
I just sent Dudley pics of these dead rabbits so he can put them here.
Oh, gosh. Do you have pics of the dead rabbits?
These fuckers are huge.
They are.
Our raised beds were 4x4 square.
Yeah.
And they're almost as long as the raised beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were huge. And so I killed them all. And we did not keep rabbits after that.
That was that. We built a chicken tractor for the backyard.
Yeah, we raised meat birds.
Yep.
Which we'll never do again.
Not that breed. No, the Cornish cross abomination.
Yeah.
We had laying hens in the hutch that had the rabbits in it as well. We had 11 raised beds. Remember those 14-foot sunflowers we had in the back corner? Mm-hmm. And that's where
we raised ducks.
Oh, yeah.
The duck house.
Oh, gosh, I hate ducks.
Yeah.
I remember.
They got dead, too.
I remember our two oldest when they were still little. Because what we were trying to teach our kids was that food doesn't come out of a hole in the side of a building at the drive-through.
Right.
It doesn't come out of a
store.
Right. It doesn't come out of a cardboard box. Food comes from the ground, and it's a blessing from the Father. And so I've got our two oldest, who are still little, in the backyard with me, and I'm like, all right, we're going to harvest these ducks. And they're like, okay, Dad. And so we had 4 French Rowans, whatever the hell they are. And I get this one duck. I've got a hatchet in my right hand, and I had a log, and I pulled the duck's head over the log. I'm holding its head in my hand. I take the hatchet, and I go, whap, and I cut its neck. And the body springs up and goes running around the backyard with blood splurting out of the stump. And the head is laying on the ground. And the mouth of the duck is going like this. Whap, 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 whap. But I don't know this. The quacker is in the base of their throat and the chest. So this headless zombie duck is running through the backyard, spurting blood, going whap, 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 in time with the head laying on the ground, going whap, 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 whap. And the two kids are standing there. Harlan was still little.
Mortified.
And he's like,
yeah.
Ah! What? Ah! And so I grabbed a second duck. I was like, shit, we're here now. Pop. I popped it too, and there's these 2 ducks running around the backyard. Whap, 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 whap. They're crying. I was like, suck it up. We're going to eat these ducks.
Uh-huh.
And so we pluck them and gut them and throw a duck into the oven. And I was like, and I had grown up in upstate New York eating duck. Had golden retrievers and Labrador retrievers, and so we'd shoot ducks. And so I'm like, well, these are going to be great ducks. You know, we raised them in the backyard and took care of them, and it tasted like boot leather.
They were horrible.
I was so disappointed. Yeah.
Like, we will never have raised ducks again.
No, and they destroy their water, and they just everything about
disgusting.
Them.
Yep.
And
yeah, we are not goat or duck people.
We are not. Remember the ducks we got for Grandma?
Yeah, the runners ran away.
Tell that story.
So the last ducks we had ended up dead. They were horrible. Well, then after we moved here, I ended up becoming friends with this woman, Granny B, and she was wanting me to incubate some eggs for her, some duck eggs. I was like, okay, no problem. You know, I love incubating. And so she's like, okay, well, like whatever we hatch, we'll just split it. And I was like, sounds good to me. And I'm like, I don't really care for ducks, but like free ducks, you know, whatever. And so hatch out the ducks, give her half the ducks. I take half the ducks. We raise the ducks. And eventually we move the ducks up to a little coop that we had built by our pond. It's like, oh, this will be a great place for ducks to live. And so we keep them up there. And then I'm like, okay, like they should know like this is their area. So like we opened the door one day and like they'll find their way to the pond. No. These ducks just literally stayed in the corner of their coop and would not venture out. So my grandma comes to talk to the ducks, and she goes up to them one day and she's like, I don't know why you guys just don't run out of here. And the ducks literally took the cue and ran out of the coop and across the pond and across the creek and disappeared. Like they were ducks no more.
It had pissed rain for days before.
Oh yeah,
this.
the creeks were raging.
I remember Grandma going, You just come on out of there, you ducks. And so these ducks hadn't moved for 2 weeks from the corner of the thing.
Right.
They run out of the front door of the coop, into the pond, across the top of the pond, down the hill. They just keep going right across the pond, down the hill, into the creek that was busting its banks, white water going like 40 miles an hour, and whoosh, ducks are gone. And Grandma, we're all standing there like, just laughing. What the hell just happened? I remember her going, Hommy? It's like, they're gone, Grandma. Yeah. Those ducks are in the next county.
We're not duck people.
We're not duck people. So all that shit goes down to Texas. Mm-hmm. And we knew we had to relocate, right? And we'd been talking with Grandma for years about, let's just find a piece of land and our household and Grandma can
having a farm,
come together on a piece of land. Right. And we would go up to Grandma's house pretty much every Sunday, have Sunday supper, and pretty much every Sunday after supper, it started as kind of daydreaming. Yeah. And then we started busting out the pens and paper and detailing what this would look like. Mm-hmm. And you had known for a long time that as Grandma gets older, that it's your job to help take care of Grandma because she helped take care of you when you were younger.
Yeah. One, it's a promise that I made to my great-granny. Yeah. Because my grandma took care of my great-granny in her older years. And so when my great-granny was dying, she basically was like, Hommy, you got to promise me that you'll be there for Grandma. Yep. And I was like, okay, Granny.
Yep. And so you are.
Yep.
And you have been. And so we started sketching out what is that going to look like?
Right.
What is that relationship going to look like? What do the finances look like? Mm-hmm. And we were working for Vine and Branches at this point.
Yep.
Danny Jackson, one of my absolute mentors, incredible man of Elohim.
Who was one of our church elders from the church that imploded. Yeah. And, but basically, whenever I couldn't be a contractor, whenever I got sick, and we figured out, okay, the POTS is exacerbated by up-down. Yep. So, like, if I go from standing to sitting, it's basically like running a marathon all day long. Well, being a contractor is nothing but bending over, stooping, bending, doing all the things. So I was like, okay, I can't physically do that, at least for this time. And so our brother Danny he had a small wood shop out of his garage that he did custom furniture and cabinets with, and he was looking to expand and grow his business. And so he had reached out to me about designing for him, doing the cabinet designs, and I was like, shoot, yeah, like that's right up my alley. I love design work. And shortly after I came on board, he ended up having you come on board to run the shop and do installs. Yep. And so it was just, it was a total yaw thing that like we moved. And so
yeah. So but we also knew, so we're still in North Texas, and we knew we needed to get out. Mm-hmm. And we had been saving and murdering our debt for like 3 years, getting out of debt. That was a very busy time. Yeah. Between you with POTS, job change, baby, pre-existing kids, just, trying to continue to operate your company and then getting hired by Danny and then building his company and then figuring out with Grandma what relocation would look like and getting out of debt and then still prepping this whole time. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing extra work, working on the weekends. Before we had Shabbat figured out, I was working Saturdays and then.
Well, remember, our relationship was shit, too.
Yeah, our relationship was shit, too.
Like, we had a lot trying to tear us apart.
And we made it. Praise God. And I guess I just bring that up anecdotally because if you're listening to this right now and you're going through some stuff, keep going.
Keep going. Keep pushing.
Yep.
Keep, perseverance wins.
Yeah. And so you found this place.
Yes.
Where we're sitting right now. And I had said...
Well, it was another prayer. Like, we were working for Vine and Branches, and we had grown. We had grown exponentially. Like, I was selling, $250,000 cabinet jobs.
Yep.
When I had been given a sales goal of 10,000 a month.
Yep.
And, within 3 months, I'm bringing them in. And, and so we grew really fast. And, then our wood shop burnt down.
Yeah, it did. $1.4 million loss.
Us moving had been talk,
Concept only. And our wood shop burnt down. And I remember, like, we pulled up to the shop that following morning. And I'm sitting there just looking at black. And... Well, a shop that we had built.
Yeah.
You designed the layout of the shop.
Yep.
I built it. Like we built it, but I led the crews that built it. Like
right.
We did that whole build out. It was our shop. I wired the whole place. Like it was ours.
It was our baby.
It was ours.
Yeah. And so I remember saying, like, I know we've talked about it, but like this is our sign.
Yep.
Like if we're gonna do this, now's the time to do it.
I remember you saying, I'm not doing this again.
And I'm not building this again.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's when we got serious about moving.
Well, even in all of that, like shop fire, right? Like think about all the things here, right? I think it was 10 days later, there was another shop a few miles from there that company used to do timber framing and spiral staircases. Yeah. And they had, it was a family business, and the people in the family who were doing the work had retired, but they kept the shop and everything in the shop because they just didn't want to part with it. They saw it as an asset. We were operational in that shop a few miles away. 10 days later, we literally walked in. It was a bigger building.
Right.
It already had CNCs in it. I mean, lumber racks, miter saws, tables, everything was already there.
Yeah, it was way better than what we had.
It was already there, right? And so that was the hand of the Father too. It just, there was so much happening. It was just incredible. And so we didn't have to rebuild.
Right.
But we weren't, it was a turning point. You found this place, answered prayer, and you said it's perfect. And what we had been talking about, praying about, was we wanted mature trees, water, and a change in elevation. And you're like, I found a place in Oklahoma. It's got mountains. And I was like, babe, there are no mountains in Oklahoma. Yeah. I was like, do you mean plateaus? I'm not going back to Lawton. I'm not doing it. And you're like, no, it's got mountains. Now, I'm from upstate New York. We have the Catskill Mountains that are part of the Appalachian Mountains. I've been to the Rockies. You used to live out in Colorado. Yeah. Our first vacation together, 30 days after we met, was to Red Feather National Park in Wyoming. So we know what real mountains are, but we have very large hills / very small mountains here. Yes. But it's way better. It's way better than super flat North Texas, right?
Treeless,
yeah.
Flat North Texas.
I think I've cut 300 trees on this property since we moved here, and you can't even tell.
No.
And not even little, thousands of little trees. So we moved here. I remember when we met the realtor, Dara Lee, here. I got 1 foot out of the truck. 1 foot out of the truck. And the Father just smashed me with conviction, it was just like the day that I met you. He said, "You're home." Yep. I said 2 words, "You're home." And she's like, "Well, you guys want to see the place?" I was like, "No." Nope. Yes, but no. Like, you don't have to sell me on it. We're home. And even that, it's just how that whole timeline worked out, because there's 2 houses here, one for us, one for Grandma. The people who owned the property were living in the house that we would end up moving into, so we moved into Grandma's house in February.
Well, because Grandma had already sold her house in North Texas.
Yep.
And, we were renting, so we just had to, get out of our lease. But she sold her house, and she was basically hopping between our house in Texas and my uncle's house in Texas. And, and for an 80-year-old woman, that's hard to do. And so it was like, okay, Father, like, we really need a place. Like, Grandma, I don't want Grandma unhappy or uncomfortable. So, we found this place, and things were taking longer than expected, and patience.
Because the couple that owned it needed to move. They were selling so they could go be with their family, their kids and grandkids in Tulsa, I think.
Right, but there was an issue like deed. Lien release to the county and blah, blah, blah. So, like, things just took a lot longer. And so I ended up, like, talking to him, and I'm like, hey, I know we haven't closed, but, like, we've got the money. Here's the money. And can we please, that house up there is vacant. Can we please just move my grandma into the house? And praise Yah, they were like, yeah, absolutely. Like, no problem. And so we all ended up moving into Grandma's house. Me and the kids had like a mattress on the floor in what is now her art room. And
well, there were no utilities at first.
Yeah, we had no utilities.
But we had a wood stove.
And so, like, and you're in Texas still working.
Yeah.
And I'm designing remotely, and but I'm literally in the woods with a hatchet. Not even a hatchet. Like, it was like, what was the the big knife
machete
thing. Yeah, the machete thing.
That's a machete.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the woods with a machete.
Okay.
Chopping limbs. So that we can stay warm in the, like, 20-degree February day.
Yep. And I was working Monday through Thursday down in Texas, doing about 60 to 70 hours a week in those 4 days, commuting 4.5 hours each way. And at the time, we still had our Texas house. I lived there alone for a while. And then, where else did I stay? Stayed a few other places, like friends that we had down there. Because Rusty, our landlord, was like, hey, I'm going to have the house back. And I was like, of course, thank you. He was always good to us, always hooked us up. And so anyway, but that was a strain on the relationship, because I couldn't just walk away from Danny and Vine and Branches.
Right.
There had to be a transition there, but we also had to establish a foothold here. And I remember going in, and I did that for 8 months. And I remember going into Danny's office one day about 6 months into this. I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. He's like, what's up? I said, brother, I love you, but I cannot keep doing this. And he goes, I love Danny. He goes, I know. I'm amazed you made it this far.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this conversation for 6 months. And I was like, I love you. I don't want to put you in a bad spot. And I felt deeply then, and still do now, that shop fire is my fault. I'm not the one who set it on fire.
Right.
But I was the guy. It stops with me. And we had a kid who was welding in there. And it's a wood shop. There's dust. Yep. There's sawdust everywhere, dust everywhere. It's full of wood. It's full of fuel. And so where he was welding, we had a 5-gallon bucket full of water. And we had a fire extinguisher, always. And so at the end of the day, every day, I would tell him, hey, if you've been welding in this area, douse the whole area with water. Because there is sawdust and all of that. And I remember walking out that day, and I hadn't told him that. And the next morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting phone calls from the fire chief. Hey, your wood shop's on fire. That's my fault. I should have told that kid. And it's not that kid's fault. Right? And he was a young man. He's still a young man now. I hope that he doesn't feel the weight of that. Or if he does, that he's used it positively. I remember his name. His name was Cole. Good kid. It's my fault because I didn't check. I didn't make sure that he had followed the protocol that we had established. The buck stops with me. And I wore that. It crushed me. And it was Danny's business. Yep. It's our shop. We built it, but Danny paid for it. Right. Danny's the one that took over $1 million loss on the deal. And I'm the guy that Danny trusted to run this. And so I couldn't just walk away from him. But after 6 months of commuting back and forth, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Right. He's like, I know. And it still took another 2 months of commuting back and forth. And he was and still is so good to us. I mean, let us use his trucks and trailers to move and always made sure we had, to his own detriment, that we had everything that we needed. Yep. A very kind, loving guy. But then at the end of that, I'm like, well, I'm home now. Now what do we do?
Well, and that whole process was trusting in Yah. Yeah. There was, I remember many conversations between us where you were home for the weekend and complaining, about your previous work week. And I'm like, honey, we can't keep doing this. Yeah. I don't want you coming home and just exhausted, tired, and complaining the whole, that's no joy for us. And you're like, but that's how I make my money. What am I supposed to do? Yep. And you had started your YouTube channel, but it was a baby channel.
Yeah. Well, that's your fault.
Yes.
The fact that we even have a YouTube channel.
It is my fault. I take full credit.
You did it.
And sometimes I kick myself, but
hey, you pray for somebody who would talk.
I know.
We're here now.
But you had, the baby YouTube channel, and I think you might have just started Patreon.
We had Patreon in North Texas.
Yeah, but it was still
less than a year old small by the time we were here full time. Yeah. And
and so you're like, I don't know, this is our main income. What am I gonna do? And I'm like, we just gotta have faith that he's gonna provide, and you do what you've been doing, but you do it more seriously, and you treat it like a business. And then, so you ended up leaving Vine and Branches and moving home full time, which was in and of itself a challenging time, because here I had been basically a single mom. Yep. 4 or 5 days out of the week, and then we're transitioning back to having Dad home full time, and the things that I had set in place, and being head of the house in essence when you were gone, and then having him back, it was,
while also learning more to walk in Torah,
right? And being a submissive wife.
Yeah. And being the head.
Yeah. And what that relationship looks like, and and then we still had relationship battles going on. Like that was still a very trying time. And yeah. It was.
We made it.
We did.
I remember it was in December, first year that we were here on Patreon. And my goal in the month of December was to have a 15-minute call with every patron.
I
remember that? And we had 210 patrons. I did the math. I was like, all right, 30 days, right? I make 7 calls a day. I've got everyone. And
that was the first time we spoke to Pandy.
Oh, yeah, it was. Remember that? Yeah. And it was awesome.
It was.
And some of those people are still here very early on. And the Patreon. And a lot of people ask me now, right? It's weird. I don't like being pseudo-famous. I don't feel like an authority in the space,
right,
even though I am. Patreon has asked me now 5 times if I will. They do a quarterly online summit, and they do a yearly in-person summit. Between the online and the in-person, they've asked me 5 times if Bear Independent will come speak to other Patreon creators on how to build a Patreon channel that is as successful as ours is. And I refuse to do it because I don't want bullshit content creators taking advantage of people. Because our goal has always been to provide overwhelming value.
Yep.
Like overwhelming to where it's like it's $10 a month. You can't live without it. And so whether I want to be or not, I'm becoming an authority in the space on content creation, YouTube side, Patreon side. And it's odd for me because, we were very little and we just kept going. I remember hearing Gary Vaynerchuk. I was listening to Gary V like 6 years ago. And he was like, just make as much content as you can. He's like, it's like baseball. It's like you need a new at bat. Like you struck out last time, make another one, make another one, make another one. We're pushing 8,000 pieces of content now.
Yeah, like you literally took that to heart. Like you
Yeah.
and I mean, to your credit, like you treated it like a business. Like you worked 8 hours a day either filming content or doing vidIQ or researching. Like you very much so treated it like a business. And which was again frustrating for me because like we're trying to homestead and stuff, and like I see you here.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey babe. And you're like, I'm working. I'm like, but I see you. You're not like.
Oh yeah, I remember those conversations. I literally remember on multiple occasions like, hey, we need to have this conversation again. Just because you can see me doesn't mean I'm here.
Right.
And yeah, that was challenging as well. But I think where things really started to go well for us again was when we started working together again.
Yeah. Like that's where we strive together. So like we've got the YouTube thing going, we've got Patreon going.
Yep.
People are requesting merchandise. You've got, stickers that you're doing and some patches, and you've got the overwhelm going on. And and anytime the husband's overwhelmed, at least in our house, the house is affected.
Yeah.
Like everybody's tensions are high.
Yep.
And so trying to help you, I'm like, okay, what do you need? Like what's going on? And you're like, I'm trying to do this online store thing, and like, I just don't have the time to do it, and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, like, can I help? Can I help you? And so it was and I had never done e-commerce. I had never done a website. I was a designer. Like, I knew CAD and SketchUp, and but that's, one of the things that I'm good at is just figuring out stuff.
Yep.
Like if you give me a problem, I'm gonna figure out how to solve it.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this, but like I will figure out how to make us an online store. And so I did.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we were using one thing for a little while, and that was a huge pain in the butt.
Wix?
Yeah.
Oh, Wix is terrible.
Yeah. Well, they're good as a website platform. They are horrible as an e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
So after pulling all of our hair out with them, again, problem, like, okay, this sucks. What else is there out there? And so I ended up switching us over to Shopify.
Yep.
And that's who we've been with since.
Yeah. Happily or unhappily at times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then on Patreon, I'm like, what kind of swag do you guys want?
Right.
And one of the overwhelming responses was first aid kits.
Yes.
And so we've been working with Cody at Sojourn Gear. He patterned the first Bear Fac. And there's content from me from 5 years ago out in our barn, live streaming and recording Patreon content and packing first aid kits at the same time.
Yep.
I found years
Yeah, because
ago,
that used to be your Tuesday, I think, is when.
Yeah. Tactical Tuesday,
Yeah.
packing first aid kits. Yep. I found a slip of paper that I think is at our other office, the executive office now. I need to find it. We need to frame it because it's a handwritten inventory of what we had.
Yeah.
Tourniquets, 7.
Yep.
There are more tourniquets than that in this room right now.
Yeah.
Right? Just, quick clot, 2. Just very, very basic. And Travis, Adventure Frontier, he gave us the hookup with North American Rescue because he had an account with them.
Right.
And he's like, hey, buddy, just run it through my books.
Yep.
We'll square up at the end of each month. To this day, love you, Travis. You're an amazing brother.
Wouldn't be here without you.
100%. 100%. And so it got to the point where I couldn't pack all the first aid kits anymore. There's too many. And the barn freaking leaks. It still leaks.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can't put product in here.
No.
And so we got our first little office. And that lasted like a year.
Yeah.
And then we got our next, our big office, 1,700 square feet. And that lasted like a year.
Yeah.
And then we got our current office, which is 8,000 square feet. And we've been there a couple of years. And the goal, the plan is strategic level in 2025. It's 8,000 square feet is to build another 20,000 square foot building next door to it. We'll go to biz dev next, where we're headed. What you think about where we're headed. We'll take a quick break. Do-do-do-do.
Do-do-do-do.
We're back from our break.
Do-do-do-do.
I peed. You got coffee.
Yes.
Nice. All right, so we made it all this way. Praise Yah.
Yes.
We're here now.
We are here now.
We got a new baby.
Yes.
We got a new house.
Yep.
Which we needed.
We did.
because praise God for the old house, but
it was a roof over our heads. But yeah,
there's a proverb that
it
says
was a slow leaking roof over our heads.
There's a proverb that says Yahweh upholds the house of the righteous, and I think that's the only reason that house hasn't fallen down yet.
Yeah.
So thankful for this house.
So thankful.
Thankful for our family. Continues to grow. Our businesses and our ministries continue to grow. PJ wiped olive oil on my forehead and said, go do pastor stuff now.
Right, yeah.
We bought a church. We're retarded.
Well, I mean, I think we've always been
we've always been retarded. But where do you see us going next?
So,
or maybe another question, another way to ask that: where do you see us going next, and what are you most excited about and/or most trepidatious about?
Okay, that's a good way of phrasing it. So I think this is something that is a big difference between you and I. And that you are a planner.
Yep.
You want to know what's coming so you can plan for it. Whereas I'm let's see where we go. And so, because if 14 years ago you would have said, where are you going to be?
Yep.
What are you going to experience? What challenges and blessings are going to come your way? I would have never in my wildest dreams been able to say everything that we've been through.
Yeah.
And I think this is me personally. I think when people can be hyper focused on sticking to a plan, they can miss some of the blessings that can come their way. And so I have no idea where we're going to be in the next 5-10 years. I can only imagine it's going to be awe-inspiring because thus far has been awe-inspiring. Like, I will say, as long as we maintain staying on Yah's path,
I agree with that.
I think that that's a huge part, is continuing to listen and being obedient to Him. That I have no idea where we're going next. All I know is buckle up. 'Cause it's been a wild ride.
Did you ever think you'd be a pastor's wife?
So it's actually something that I have, and you don't even know this. So
no, I'm on pins and needles over here.
It's actually something that I have felt since I was a young girl, that I would be married to a man of Yah, a strong man of Yah. And it's something that, like, I didn't really remember until a couple of weeks ago. And when I was thinking about being married to a pastor, that I was like, oh yeah, I always did feel like I was going to be married to a man that spoke of Yah. And so yes and no. Like I didn't, whenever I had those thoughts younger, I was always like, that's crazy. No way. And then it happened.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's brought on its own set of challenges. Like that's a whole new ball game.
Yep.
For us. And I think that, even though you're getting more comfortable with the idea, it's something that we're both kind of uncomfortable with, because pedestals and stuff that
I think one of the challenges is navigating expectations, at least for me. I'm not just a pastor, and so time management has been a big deal in my life and in our lives.
Yes. Yeah, that's always been
up to this point. It's always, and I'm intimately aware that once you spend time, you never get it back. Right. And so, we literally have banners, earmuffs, kids. We have banners hanging up in our offices that say, fuck busy, be effective. Right. Like I hate busy work. I hate it. I be effective. Get the job done. If you can do in 15 minutes what takes somebody else 8 hours to do, you're the girl for the job. Get it done, right? And get it done to an incredibly high standard as well. Our standard is excellence. It's not perfection, because perfection is impossible for human beings, but our standard is excellence. And so like you operate to the best of your ability in excellence in the purview that you have. I'm going to do the same. And, we surround ourselves on the business side with performers, people that do just figure it out, right? Those are the best people, because the only constant is change. That's it. There's always going to be new problems to solve. And if you get comfortable thinking, I've solved the problem set, I'm here now, you're stuck, you're stagnant. And there is no plateau. There is no level. Level is actually going down, because you're spending time that you're getting no return on. Inflation is eating your money, right? Like there is no stagnant. So it's up or nothing. And so I think that's part of why it's definitely the blessing of the Father, coupled with the sweat of our brows. All these different things, the different organizations inside of the enterprise have grown, right? Because we surround ourselves with awesome people. We operate righteously to the best of our ability. We're effective, not just busy, right? And we're problem solvers. And now you add in pastoring to that. What's the expectation? Have some people, they reach out and they're in crisis. I'm not. I'm not in crisis. I can't see you right now. Or I'm in the middle of something else. And I might be pastoring somebody else right now, or trying to get the baby to sleep because it's, bedtime. I'll get with you tomorrow. I'm not available right now. Well, that offends them. Shit, I don't know what to tell you, right? For me, it goes back to positions of strength. If I'm not good, I can't help you be good. And I'm not, and I know this about me, there's lots of different types of pastors. I'm not a nice guy. I'm a good guy. And it took me a long while to figure out how to even be a good guy. I'm not a nice guy. I won't tickle your ears. I have emotions. I have empathy. I have sympathy. But I don't let those get in the way of telling you the truth of what Yah said.
Ditto.
And yeah, 100%. But that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially if there's an expectation of, we were friends and brothers and sisters before you were ordained. But now you're ordained. Now you're the pastor, so we've got this special relationship. It's like, But if you seek me in a pastoral role, I'm accountable to Elohim for that. And so if I capitulate on what he needs me to say because we have this special relationship, my ass is accountable for that. Mm-hmm. And so navigating all that it's been a challenge for me. It really has. And like so many other things in life, I know what to do in this role by knowing what not to do from so many other people in this role. Mm-hmm. There's a very short list of people that I would consider a true pastor, myself personally, that I've had personal interaction with that I get to learn from. Mm-hmm. You know, Pastor Joe and Sister Kate have been instrumental in our walk, not just in the pastor's wife role, but from very early on when we first got up here, and they have taken us under their wing, reproved and instructed us, patted us on the back when we needed it, kicked us in the ass when we needed it. Yep. And I think they do not get nearly the credit that they deserve for the impact that they have had on people's lives. Is measured in the thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. Yep. And they're cool people too.
Oh yeah.
You know, so pattern of behavior to emulate. It's like there's a couple of people out there, but even then, we're not them.
No.
And they're not us, and that's okay. So figuring out what this looks like for me, for us, has still been a challenge. Yep. And for me, the biggest challenge has been availability. How do you make yourself available to people that you're stewarding, that you're responsible to Elohim for, in light of everything else that's going on? And how do you assign urgency?
Yeah.
Do you assign urgency to the detriment of yourself? Right? And right now, I'm just navigating that with my gut, you know, because we have the added benefit of knowing pretty damn well the people that are in our flock.
Right.
And so I don't always read people correctly, but most of the time I do. And so what one person deems an emergency, somebody else might not.
Correct.
And a lot of times, you know, stimulus pause response, I might not.
It's a great saying. Like that's a great thing to do.
Yeah. I might not know how to answer you right now.
Right.
So, and I found myself saying, never more in my life have I said, I don't know. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. It's a good change for you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Because I was gonna say this is like where you like slide me in the middle finger, like.
I don't have to slide it. They're right here.
But it is. It's. I mean, like I said, you were not the man that you were 14 years ago.
Yep.
And in a very good way, and. You know, I think knowing that or being okay with saying, I don't know, is a huge, huge thing. Because you're one that, like, it's not even that, like, you don't like not knowing. You like to be in the know. You like to know, you know, that's why you read so much. Is because your brain is a knowledge sponge because you want to know. And so I think it's a huge maturing level for you to be able to say, I don't know, and be okay with that.
I think the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yes, I would agree.
You know, Dunning-Kruger effect. And then also cognitive biases.
Yeah.
Once you know something, you tend to think that that's the only things there are to know about that thing are the things that you know. And the only way to know about that thing is how you came to know about it. Yeah. It's like, actually, that's not true. Yeah. And so I love reading. You know this. Mm-hmm. I read 2 to 4 different books per day.
Yeah.
And I love it. But, I also came from an industry where I don't know was highly punished.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, I don't know.
Right.
You don't project manage $1 billion projects and say, I don't know.
Right.
Right. And it's like, not if you want to keep your job.
Right.
Right. So you have to come up with an answer. And so I think I've been historically good at finding answers. Mm-hmm. If I don't know, I know who to talk to. Which is network, network and mentorship. But now it's odd for me being intimately aware of who I am, to be that mentor, that leader for other people in a spiritual capacity, because I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not worthy of it. Right? It's all Elohim. Mm-hmm. But it's challenging, and it really comes down to the 2 prime directives, love Yahweh, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that has been enlightening to me is people will then ask the follow-on question, who's my neighbor?
Yeah.
And what I found with that is oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, that's rooted in, do I really have to love this person?
Right.
Which means you need to examine your motivations.
Yeah.
We're looking for a legalistic out as to why I don't have to love this person. Mm-hmm. And then when you realize everybody on earth who has ever existed, Yeshua died for them too. Mm-hmm. It's like, why am I trying to find a reason to not love this person when Yeshua died for them too? Some people know it, some people don't. Some people are better at it than others. But we're all lower than whale shit when it comes to the kingdom of Elohim. Yep. And we're posturing over who's holier than thou. It's like, man, right. Blank speck,
Yeah, we're all still hella broken.
Yeah.
Like, we still mess up daily.
I think that's a good word, too, because I think there's an expectation that those who are in leadership, if whoever you are, you're listening to this, your pastor, your pastor's wife, it's like they got it all figured out. No, they don't. No. They're still people, too. Mm-hmm. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to mess stuff up. And grace is a 2-way street. Yeah. It's not a 1-way street. Great.
Well, and I think some people are better at masking than others. Like they feel like they have to mask because they're at that level. Yeah. That's one thing that, like, I'm thankful for us because we don't mask shit. And we are who we are. And, like, you can love us or you can hate us. Yeah. And, but I think that, that's just one of the, big problems with people in general is they don't like showing their, what's the word?
Their warts.
No, their weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they don't want people to know that they're struggling with something or that they have a problem doing this thing or whatever the case may be. And I think that that's something that, like, we are getting better at not masking.
Yeah. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit.
You don't throw a fit.
You got any final words for the audience?
Thank you guys for being here. Like, we've got newbies, but we also have some oldies that have been here for
forever.
I don't even know how long we've been doing this. 6 years?
7.
7 years. Yeah. Long ass time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, thank you guys for sticking with us. And
that's a good word.
Yeah.
We've done incredible things with the Bear Nation.
Oh, the Bear Nation is not like any other audience.
Yep.
For any other YouTuber out there.
Yep.
Like, I am a firm believer that, like, each and every one of you has made this thing 100% what it is. Like,
Yep.
we ask, you show up.
Oh my, yeah.
Like, and it's been amazing to see how the Father has used Bear Nation. Because it's just like so many times I'm just left flipping speechless. And
Yep. We Grindstone has deployed 45 times.
Yeah.
That's Bear Nation. Mm-hmm. Caleb House has rescued dozens of people. That's Bear Nation. Mm-hmm. There's 136 lives that have been saved as of the time of this recording with Refuge Medical Equipment.
Right.
That's Bear Nation.
Yep.
We've donated more than 7,000 copies of the scriptures. Mm-hmm. That's Bear Nation. And somewhere out there is the person in Bear Nation that sent me that $215 PayPal anonymously without knowing it. Do you remember that? When I was like, I got to buy a case of scriptures.
Yep.
$214.80.
Yep.
Prayed over it, went to bed. Wake up the next morning, anonymous PayPal donation, $215.
Yep.
And the message was, I don't know why I'm sending this to you, but you do.
Yeah.
That's Bear Nation. And so it is far more than an audience. Yeah. There's so many, hundreds of thousands of people who are not just like-minded, not just ideological alignment, but same conviction of the Spirit to go out there and be the light. And the fact that they support us in the doing of that, mm-hmm. and not just monetarily, right. but there are thousands of people that pray for us every day.
Yes.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's insane in the best way possible.
Yeah.
If I know this, if we needed something, we could just ask and it would be there. We were in Mayfield, Kentucky. We needed a dump truck. The next day we had a dump truck. Mm-hmm. Jamie in Idabel lost her house. Yep. I was like, we need $50,000 for this lady so we can get her out of here. We can get her put up. We're going to put her in culinary school, mm-hmm. so she could take care of these 2 little babies that she's got and get back on her feet. The next day, mm-hmm. here's $50,000. We need chainsaws. Ken drove down from Ohio, and I was like, here's chainsaws.
Right.
Yep. Mark, you're out there, Mark. I need a dozer. Here's a dozer. I need a track hoe. Here's a track hoe. We need people to help build Caleb House. Here come people. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And I get so much undue borrowed credit from people. Like, Bear, you're amazing. No. Like, no.
No.
It is not me.
Mm-mm. No. The Father is amazing.
Yeah.
And the work that he is doing is amazing.
Yep.
But we are just merely the wires.
Yeah.
That allow that energy to run.
Mm. I think of it as like pipes. Mm-hmm. Like, he's the water.
Yep.
I'm just one of the pipes.
Yep.
There are lots of pipes in this house. Mm-hmm. Depending on which faucet needs to get open, that's where the living water will flow to. I'm just blessed that I get to be a pipe. Mm-hmm. Nobody looks at a house and is like, damn, that's a nice piece of cast iron pipe right there. You know what I mean?
No. I look at cast iron, I'm like, damn it. Why? Why do they have cast iron?
Ductile iron.
The plumber of the house.
Yeah, you're the plumber. I'm the electrician.
That's interesting that, like, you said water and pipe, because, like, remember, like, our whole conversation about, like, you deploying for Grindstone?
Oh yeah.
And I used to be, I would hold my head high, but in the background I'd be bitter.
Yep.
Because I was stuck at home and you were going out and doing fantastic things. And my heart was in a bad place with that. And every time you deployed, our plumbing would break.
Yep.
And, I was dealing with my own emotion. And then I had, no water in the house. You know, luckily enough, I know how to do plumbing. Like, of course, Yah gives me something that I can totally fix. So, you know, I'm having to, you know, crawl under the house or, you know, rip out a toilet or like cut into drywall. Like there was so many times, y'all don't even know. Like it was like the running joke. Like he's leaving. Oh shit, what's going to break?
Yep.
And so, but it took a long time. It probably took a couple of years for me to realize my heart's wrong. Like, he's out there doing good stuff, and I'm being the winch at home, and, like, no wonder shit keeps breaking. And so I totally had to, like, check my spirit and change, you know, how I handled and how I perceived, and like, you know, when I would get, you know, because it's all the enemy talking to you.
Yep.
And so when, you know, that thought would come into my head, it's like, no, that's not the case. He, you know, and speak the truth. You know, you cover the lie that the enemy's telling you with the truth. You rebuke it. And so once I finally became aware of that and got my heart in the right place, guess what stopped breaking?
The pipes.
The pipes.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Normally I would ask people at this point, so where can they find you?
Here.
But don't come looking for my wife.
No.
I will shoot you
No,
with
I will
an
meet
AK.
you in the driveway with
the shotgun.
With the shotgun.
Like the internet guy.
Uh-huh.
That was really funny.
That was funny.
You're around.
I'm around. I'm in the shadows.
Yeah.
And, you know, you guys ask for swag, and I do my best to get it put on the store. And, you know, things operate because I'm in the background.
Yep.
When shit gets broke. They're like, I wrote the code wrong. The story won't work now. What do I do? I'm like, hold on.
Oh, talk about heart attack moments. Hey,
yeah.
The Refuge Medical Store's broken.
Yeah.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We have an awesome team of people. We have awesome teams of people.
We do. Yeah.
I mean, we have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people now.
I know. That's why I'm saying, like, I'm not going to try and predict the future.
Yeah.
And what it holds, because I never would have, in my wildest dreams, never would have guessed he would bring us the people that he's brought us, build the businesses that he's built, build the ministries that he's built, build you up the way he's built you. Like, in our house, like our home, our family, like, I did not expect to have a baby at 40.
You rocked it, though.
Thanks.
The midwife was like screaming with joy when you delivered it. And she's like, that was fucking textbook perfect. Yeah. I was like, simmer down, lady. Like, it was really cool. Mm-hmm. You're an awesome mom.
Thanks.
You're an awesome wife.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're my wife.
Thanks.
And I love you. And thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
And don't come looking for my wife.
No, I'll shoot you in the face.
Or I'll come looking for you. You can find me at bearindependent.com.
Yes.
And my wife is lurking in the shadows of the HTML code at bearindependent.com. Right. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I feel included now.
Shalom, y'all.
Shalom.